Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're digging into some material you shared on IAS 38, Intangible Assets.
That's right. It's the go-to standard for accounting for those tricky non-physical assets. Think software, patents, that sort of thing.
And it essentially tells businesses how to recognize them, measure them, and what to disclose, yeah?
Exactly. It prescribes the treatment for intangibles not covered by other specific standards. It's been around since 2001, but it has seen updates, particularly around business combinations and amortization methods.
Okay, so let's nail down the basics. What exactly qualifies as an intangible asset under IAS 38?
Well, the formal definition is an identifiable, non-monetary asset without physical substance.
Identifiable, non-monetary, no physical substance. Got it. Like software, patents, copyrights you mentioned, maybe customer lists too.
Yep, those are great examples, but the key criteria for actually recognizing one on the balance sheet are identifiability, control over the resource, and future economic benefits.
Okay, let's unpack identifiable. What makes an asset identifiable enough?
Good question. It means it's either separable, so you could potentially sell it, license it, transfer it separately from the business, or it arises from contractual or other legal rights. Think of a license or a patent. That legal right makes it identifiable, even if you couldn't sell it easily on its own sometimes.
So it's not just about being valuable. It has to be distinct in some way. And control. That sounds like having the power to use it and stop others.
Precisely. You need to be able to obtain the future economic benefits flowing from it and restrict others' access to those benefits. Often, legal rights are the easiest way to demonstrate that control.
Right, like a patent gives you that exclusivity.
Exactly.
Okay, so if we've identified an intangible asset and we control it, how do we first put a number on it? Initial measurement.
Initially, it's measured at cost. Simple as that.
And if we just buy one, say, off-the-shelf software, what's included in cost?
The purchase price, obviously, plus any costs directly needed to get that asset ready for its intended use. Think legal fees, maybe some specific employee setup costs, things like that.
Makes sense. What if the intangible asset comes as part of buying a whole other company, a business combination?
Different rule there. In a business combination, the intangible asset is recognized at its fair value at the date you acquire the company.
Fair value, okay. Not the original cost to the company being bought.
Correct. And one more scenario. If you get an intangible asset through a government grant,
oh, right,
you generally have a choice. Either recognize it at fair value or at a nominal amount plus any direct expenditure to prepare it for use.
Interesting. So that covers acquiring them from outside. But what about assets developed inside the company, internally generated ones?
That's a really crucial distinction IAS 38 makes. It splits internal projects into two phases, research and development.
Okay.
Research phase costs, always expensed as incurred. The future benefits are just too uncertain at that stage.
So no capitalizing early-stage experimentation?
Nope. But development costs where things are further along can be capitalized and recognized as an intangible asset, but only if you meet a strict set of criteria.
Such as?
Things like demonstrating technical feasibility, having a clear intention to actually complete the asset and use or sell it, showing how it will generate future economic benefits, and crucially, being able to reliably measure the expenditure on that specific development.
So a much higher bar for internal development.
Definitely. And importantly, the standard explicitly prohibits recognizing certain internally generated items as assets. Think brands, mastheads, publishing titles, customer lists.
Wait, even if a company spends a fortune building its brand, why not?
Because it's generally impossible to distinguish the cost of developing those internally from the cost of developing the business as a whole. The standard aims for reliability, and valuing those internally generated items is seen as too subjective.
Got it. Prevents companies from just assigning huge values to things like brand reputation without a clear, separable cost.
Exactly. You buy a brand in a business combination. Fair value. You build it yourself. The costs get expensed.
Okay, so after we've got the asset recognized, either bought or developed, how do we account for it over time? Subsequent measurement.
Two models here, the cost model or the revaluation model.
Cost model sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's the default. Cost less accumulated amortization and any accumulated impairment losses. Pretty straightforward.
Like depreciation for tangible assets, but called amortization for intangibles.
Spot on. The revaluation model lets you carry the asset at fair value, But there's a catch.
Yes.
You can only use it if there's an active market for that specific type of intangible asset. And honestly, active markets for intangibles are rare. Think maybe Paxi licenses or some specific emission rights, perhaps.
So most companies stick to the cost model for intangibles.
Overwhelmingly, yes.
And this amortization, how does that work? You spread the cost over its useful life.
Correct, but only for assets with a finite useful life. You allocate the costs systematically over that expected life. The standard also pushes back against using revenue-based amortization methods, arguing revenue is often affected by more than just that one asset.
What if the asset doesn't really have a foreseeable limit to its life, an indefinite life?
Good point. If an intangible asset has an indefinite useful life, maybe a brand acquired in a business combination that you intend to support forever, you don't amortize it.
So it just sits there at cost.
It sits there at cost, but you have to test it for impairment at least annually, and whenever there's an indication it might be impaired. So it's not ignored, just accounted for differently.
Right. So finite life gets amortized.
Yeah.
Indefinite life gets impairment tested regularly.
That's the gist of it. It's all about reflecting how the asset contributes value over time.
Okay, this has been a great overview definition, recognition, initial measurement, the internal versus external distinction, and then how we track them over time.
It really covers the life cycle of accounting for these often very valuable but non-physical parts of a business.
Definitely. So here's something to think about as we wrap up. We see data, algorithms, AI models becoming incredibly central to so many businesses now. How do you think accounting standards like IAS 38 might need to evolve to properly capture the value of these kinds of digital intangible assets?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Defining them, establishing control, measuring their value reliably when they're constantly changing or deeply integrated. It poses some real challenges for the existing framework. It's certainly an area where we might see future standard-setting activity.
Something for all of us to keep an eye on. Thanks for this deep dive.
Thanks for diving deep with Deepcast AI today. If you enjoyed this, give us a like and definitely subscribe and ring that notification bell so you're first in line for our next exploration.